This book is about the Chat Cafe in California. The last page has an ad for a book series called At Café, which also takes place in California. It sounds to me like this was not a legit Nancy Drew book. It was just a glorified advertisement for a different book series. It's definitely a bummer of a way to end the Nancy Drew files.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
Nancy, Bess, and George are going to Santa Monica, California to help Linda Rojas with the grand opening of the Chat Cafe. Or is it pronounced Chat Cafe? I don't know. It's a cyber cafe where you can drink coffee and use public computers. It doesn't open until 2 p.m., which I think is weird. Why isn't the coffee shop open in the mornings? When our heroes arrive, some scaffolding breaks. A painter almost falls to his death. Nancy and George have to climb up the side of the building like Spider-Man in order to save him. That's the only cool thing that happens in this book, by the way. We know the incident was sabotage, not an accident, because this painter is a professional. He's the guy who paints the Golden Gate Bridge. This is a geography fail. The Golden Gate Bridge is about 400 miles away from Nancy's current location. The group gets dinner, and they return to the Chat Cafe. The power goes out, and Nancy hears a noise outside. Nancy tries to explore the alleyway there when the culprit knocks her unconscious. She wakes up hours later inside a crawl space. The culprit drags her back to the Chat Cafe. She smashes against a wall, causing a can of tomatoes to fall off a shelf. The tomatoes hit her on the head, knocking her unconscious for several more hours. Nancy probably needs serious medical attention at this point. Also, why does a coffee shop have tomatoes in stock? Nancy's friends find her the next morning. They think Nancy is an idiot who knocked herself out for no reason. When Nancy tells them about the kidnapping, they assume she's lying to make herself look better. Why are her friends so awful today? Oh, right. If they believed her and checked the crawl space right away, then there wouldn't be a mystery to solve. Lydia confesses she's been getting threatening emails about the Chat Cafe opening. Her suspects are Rich Henry, who owns a rival cyber cafe, and Ellen Dorman, who once hired her as a programmer. She also has a bitter ex-boyfriend named Chris, but he's probably in Chicago right now, so let's not worry about him. Lydia's tech guy is Andy. Bess gets a crush on Andy when they go to the beach together. Nancy, Bess, and George argue over whether or not Andy should be considered a suspect. This leads to the three friends having a big pillow fight, like they're 10 years old. The whole book, Nancy has been wearing a special locket from her boyfriend, Ned. She suddenly realizes the locket is missing. Where did it go? I know this one. I think Ned's locket was stolen by the Phantom of Venice. The culprit sabotages Lydia's car, so it can't stop. Nancy forces the car to stop by driving on the beach. We're halfway through the book, so it's long past time for us to finally meet the suspects. They both show up to the grand opening of the Chat Cafe. Ellen pressures Lydia to work for her, while Rick accuses Lydia of sending him threatening emails. Lydia says Ellen runs a virus protection company, only she purposely makes viruses to increase sales. Not long after, the Chat Cafe gets an email virus, which crashes the entire network. Bess disappears for a while. Nancy searches the alleyway for her. Nancy is owed a major apology, because just like she said, there is a crawl space here that leads directly under the Chat Cafe. The culprit has been living in the crawl space for about a month. Lydia should call the police, or at the very least get a lock for the crawl space entrances, so the culprit can't use them anymore. Bess was in the crawl space all day. She saw the culprit leaving the area, but she closed her eyes because she was really scared, and so she can't tell us who the culprit is. Bess is an idiot. The culprit hacks the Chat Cafe's website. Inside the secret HTML brackets, he left his personal signature, Ofer. Fortunately, Henry's cyber cafe keeps a record of every single email that his clients access, even the deleted ones. I can't tell if this is a major breach of privacy or if the author is just guessing how computers work. Anyway, Ofer deleted an email about poisoning the coffee today. Nancy returns to the chat cafe in time to warn everyone. She goes to Lydia's office to call the police, and yup, Nancy forgot the culprit is living in the crawl space that leads to Lydia's office. The culprit easily jumps out, beats Nancy up, ties her up, and locks her in the closet. The culprit is Chris. He talks with Lydia for a while. At the right moment, Nancy jumps out of the closet, throwing herself on top of him. Nancy gives a braggy speech where she explains all the clues that pointed to Chris. Too bad she didn't pick up on them earlier. Then Nancy wins an online game where you go through a maze and bring treasure to your website. The end. Post-book follow-up. Well, that was a terrible way to end the series. I am purposely giving it such a low score that it will be on my 10 worst Nancy Drew Files books list. Fans of the series deserve better than Nancy's best friends accusing her of lying because she was knocked unconscious. It was also dumb how Bess closed her eyes to avoid seeing the culprit too early. Like she's trying to stretch out the mystery. 11 months after the book was published, the Nancy Drew video game series started. If you look closely enough, you can find this book cover hidden in the first game. That's cool. Some reviewers dislike how the computer stuff is inaccurate, while others dislike how it feels like a desperate attempt to appeal to younger readers. I thought the computer stuff was good enough to work. Unlike some other Nancy Drew books, this author clearly made an attempt to learn about computers before writing about them. Honestly, the way they spell the word chat annoys me more than anything else about the computer storyline. The action scenes were pretty good. It's too bad the action stops when the computer stuff takes over. I give Nancy Drew Files number 124, Crime at the Chat Cafe, a 1 out of 10.